Okay, welcome everyone. This is a new one for me because there's a public hearing in front of the Board of Directors meeting, but this is the Troy Industrial Development Authority public hearing board meeting. It's June 1st, 2023, 10 a.m. We have all members of the board in attendance today, and we're going to start with the public hearing for 99 Ferry Street and Kings Landing 2. I'm going to turn it over to Justin to walk through the hearing portion.
Sure, thank you, Chairman. The first public hearing that we have scheduled for this morning is in connection with an application received from LLH Ferry LLC for a project that's supposed to be located at 99 Ferry Street. The IDA accepted the application that they submitted at our prior board meeting, and we scheduled and noticed a public hearing for this morning with mailings to the affected tax jurisdictions and a publication in the Troy Record. The project involves a project that is being sponsored by LLH Ferry LLC. It involves the acquisition by the authority of a leasehold interest in a property at 99 Ferry Street. Currently involves around 7,000 square feet of multi-story building spaces. The project involves the renovation of those spaces to provide for approximately 2,300 square feet of commercial spaces and 8 market-rate rental apartments. They've applied to the IDA for sales and use tax exemptions and a proposed pilot agreement, both of which are summarized in your hearing agenda and here at the table in the form of a cost-benefit analysis. The IDA, as part of today's proposed project authorizing resolution, is going to adopt secret findings for the project. With that summarized, I'll turn it back to the chairman to accept public comments or any questions or comments from the board if they have any.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the public or board?
Question: why a 7-year pilot?
Well, this is the public hearing. We're going to talk about this later.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. Right.
I can answer those questions then.
Good. All right. No questions till later.
Everybody's here to speak on it, and I don't see anybody online. David Smith is here to speak about 99 Ferry Street as opposed to the Fifth Avenue project. He's with your team. Okay. I know Trudy's. Okay. So there's no one here to speak on this project.
So do we close the public hearing on 99 Ferry?
Yep.
If no comments are received, we can close that here.
Okay.
The next one we have scheduled is in connection with an application received by the authority from Kings Commons 2, a proposed project to be located on the corner of Fifth Avenue and Federal Street here in the city. The IDA received an application in late 2022, accepted this application, and scheduled a public hearing for this morning. Notices were sent to the affected taxing jurisdictions and published in the Troy Record. The project, generally summarized, involves the authority acquiring a leasehold interest in just over a half an acre that's assembled by and among a number of tax parcels near the corner of Fifth Avenue and Federal Street. The project will involve the partial demolition of the existing improvements on the site and the reconstruction of some of those, ultimately to develop a mixed-use multi-story building retaining some elements of the existing improvements and containing 52 market-rate apartment units to accommodate no more than 94 bedrooms, along with related management office spaces and 600 square feet of commercial spaces. There will be some covered and exterior parking spaces associated with the project. They've applied to the IDA for sales and use taxes, exemptions, mortgage reporting taxes, and a pilot agreement, in terms of which are summarized in the cost-benefit analysis attached to your public hearing agenda and available to the public here this morning. The City of Troy Planning Commission previously reviewed the project in connection with a site plan application and adopted findings pursuant to seeker. Now the public comment period is open with any of the members of the public or the board submitting questions or comments on the proposed financial assistance.
For there any comments from the public or the board or anyone remote?
I'll just ask Trudy, do you wish to make comments on the King's Commons project? If so,
No, thank
you're
you.
on.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Draft.
Oh, Andrea, I didn't see you.
Just in time, great. Yes, if you'd like to introduce yourself, where you live and board yours.
My name is Drea Lane, I live at 2227 Fifth Avenue, Oxford here. And I am involved with NPN. And I just want to say two things. First, I know this is Steve's last meeting with the IDA, and we wanted to thank you for helping to usher a local and sometimes contentious group of neighbors through a complicated process, and we wish you the best in whatever makes it. And the other thing I wanted to do was say that we already submitted a letter to the IDA board about this issue, but I wanted to just take a little bit of a step back and talk a little bit about what kind of development we're encouraging in the city of Troy by giving them tax breaks and incentives and that kind of stuff. The thing that makes Troy special and very attractive to people, and I know that we want to get a greater population in the city of Troy, is the neighborhood. Talk to anybody about, what they like about the city of Troy, is the neighborhood. And there's been a lot of bringing or building large, really densely packed buildings into the city. And that's not what attracts people. And it doesn't help stabilize the neighborhood. What it does is it attracts people who are going to be there for a short time until they find a larger place that they can actually spend their life in, and that they can live with their family in. So these, to use the phrase that Jerry just said, many of you probably know, was these rapid boring type developments don't lend themselves to the kind of places where people want to settle down and live. And in the neighborhood that I'm from, people have been living there for generations. I've been there for 17 years, and I'm still a newcomer. So longevity and having the kind of place where you're going to settle there and live and become part of the neighborhood life is really important for maintaining Troy. So I want to encourage that kind of development to be encouraged by subsidies that people like me who own my little two-family brick house are helping to subsidize, and not these huge things that overwhelm and kind of take over a neighborhood and undermine the fabric of the community. So, putting an emphasis on maintaining, the existing neighborhood, I think is really important. So, thank you all very much. I know you all worked very hard on this. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other comments from the public on this project, anyone in attendance or online, or from the board? So this concludes our public hearing portion of our meeting.
That's great. Turn over the agenda to you, sir.
Great, thank you. So, I'm going to call to order the Board of Directors meeting of the Troy Industrial Development Authority, which begins June 1st, 2023, 10 a.m. We have all members of the board present. We're going to start with the approval of the minutes from April 21st, 2023. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on the minutes? I have one comment. My name keeps getting spelled wrong. That's all.
We'll correct that. That starts
Yeah.
with me, I think.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is a new one, too. That's my only comment. Anyone else, or do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We're going to move on to item number 2, the Executive Director's Report. See the floor is yours.
Okay, so to Trudy's point about this being my last meeting, it has been a pleasure working with everyone. Thank you. But is it my last meeting or not? We're not sure, because we have had discussions about having the actual June meeting, because this is really a delayed May meeting, in June. And we have things that we can still move forward, American Theater, 504 Broadway, depending on today's vote, and other things as well that come out of the department. This regularly scheduled meeting is 2 weeks from today, and Jeff can't be there. The following meeting, I'm not going to be able to be there. So the question is, are people available on June 29th or 30th, which are the Thursday and Friday leading into July 4th weekend? And if there's major objections against that, I haven't scheduled anything yet, but I just kind of wanted to get a feel for that, if people were able to do that or not able to do that, vehemently opposed, etc.
I'm available. The holiday doesn't come till after that date.
I'm also available.
Yep.
Okay, so if we have one, it'll probably be June. I would rather do it on the Friday. I'm flying in on Wednesday night, so I'd like to have at least one day to prep. So probably Friday, June 30th. Justin's not going to be able to make it, but he'll have somebody else here to attend. Let's see. I just want to remind people that the IDA still owns the M-Lock parcel behind the Marshall Ray Building at 701 River Street. That's something we're going to have to deal with at some point to authorize transferring that to the city, if the city will want to accept it. It has part of the Riverwalk Trail on it. The IDA owns it. It probably really has no purpose to own it. It should become city property. So I was kind of waiting on that one to look at the northern end of Ingalls Avenue property as well, because that the city owns, and that probably should be coming to either the LDC or the IDA for development purposes. So I just want to remind everybody of that. Those two parcels, or that one parcel, is out there. Let's see. We did have a closing yesterday on City Station North, the fourth of the project. So it's finally underway, and we have a check received for $310,000 to the IDA for that. So that's really great news to finally get that one moving forward. It's been a struggle with, with COVID and with everything. And let's see, we had approved funding for Verity Engineering to look at 101st to 103rd Street, which CDBG will be paving next year, and I wanted to look at how we're going to put a trail there. I had a meeting with them yesterday, as well as the CDBG people. There are some concepts floating that can work. So I can email you out the pictures, but there is a way to basically do a shared use trail, which will allow for the connection from the southern riverfront portion along 2nd Avenue to the northern riverfront portion. So thank you all for supporting that in the past. And what else do I have on here? It's going to be new business. Down here. I do have one other piece of new business that I'm going to be adding. We're going to remove item number 3, Catholic Central redevelopment. And we're going to add another $8,000 request from me for more Riverwalk design, because we need to do, I'll get to that in a minute, but I just want to mention that. They're going to add one item for Riverwalk. Riverwalk North. There's so many different names for this Riverwalk in the section, but I'll explain it to you when we get there. So that's it for the executive director's report.
Okay. See, on to the city IDA funding agreement, which is in your packet, and back to you again.
Okay, so this is an annual payment that the IDA makes to the city for staff time that includes myself, Dylan Turek, Andrew Kreshik, and Danae. And it has been $100,000 per year since before I started in 2016. So the amendment, the action is exactly the same, except for the fact that we are upping that amount. And now I forget if it's 125 or 125 to 125,000. So this, I know the city council has already looked at this and approved it from their end. We just need to approve it, and again, it's an annual payment we have always made.
This will require a motion for approval, but are there any questions or comments about this before we put that out there?
So what happens when you leave? Where's that money go? Is somebody coming into your position and getting that funding?
Somebody will come into my position and take that.
Okay.
And Chris Nolan automatically fills this position
Okay.
as mayor, deputy mayor.
Okay.
So we're still working through how it will work out for the next 6 months, but.
Okay.
Any other questions to move forward, or do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. On to agenda item number 4, grant writing. Becky?
Okay, so, the city, or the state consolidated funding application, the CFAs are coming out, and they're due, on July 31st or 30th. 30th? 28th, same thing. Okay, the 28th, and with my leaving and increased responsibilities on our staff, I would like to authorize up to $20,000 to be used for grant writing services. These grants, for the most part, will be supporting Monument Square and other IDA-involved projects along the way. So I have, following city procurement, so up to $10,000 requires 1 quote, up to $20,000 requires 2. We have 2 quotes before us from River Street Planning and from Elan Planning, now EDR. And I'm looking just for authority to be able to engage either of those 2 firms. The prices, we will analyze the pricing. The EDR's got a large number of pricing, so it's really going to be depending on which of those people they will use, on whether that or River Street Planning is the one that they will use. But it's a professional services agreement, so after the analysis, that would be at our discretion to decide who to use. But I want to be open to be able to use both. I might even be able to need to use one for one grant and one for the other, because one thing that the consolidated funding application did was it took all the grants and made them all do it at the same time. So there's a lot of firms that need to participate. You know, everybody's busy.
Are there any questions or comments on the board on the grant writing? We will need to put a motion forward for approval of the $20,000.
Up to $20,000 using EDR and River Street Plan.
I'll make a motion.
I got a question. Are you familiar with both companies?
Both. River Street Planning has done a lot for us, including the zoning ordinance recently. I've worked with both of these firms since 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a motion for that?
I have a motion.
Second?
Second.
Second with Sue. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, into agenda item number 5, new business. We're going to start with a presentation from the American Theater,
I don't think there's anybody here.
I think they're offline.
So let's do the other one first.
Yes.
Let's do 504.
504 Broadway, judicial resolution.
Okay, so this is, we have, both Ed Anker and Mike Finney from the Finney Design Group. This is for 504 Broadway. It's right across from, the Rosenblum project of the News. It's the former Unity House building, and they're proposing to add a third floor to it. It's already been through planning commission. It's a beautiful design, and it's for the home office of, actually the Troy office of the Finney Design Group, and reconfiguring the ground floor for commercial. So I'm gonna hand this off to Ed. You wanna present?
Absolutely. We went through planning last month. I was always through planning, also did HRC as well. The intent for us is to, we love downtown Troy. Mike's an RPI grad, Tara's an RPI grad, and so we're looking to grow our staff and grow our team in downtown Troy, but also create some space on the second floor for additional office space for us to potentially expand in the future, but also bring some tenants to the building for the future. We are planning on basically increasing the staff in that building to a total of about 28, ultimately over the next 5 years, about 28 people, bringing new jobs to downtown Troy. Our offices will be on the third floor of the building. They will be, we've approximately 12,000 square feet on 2 floors right now. We'll be adding an additional 75,000 square feet on the upper floor. The impetus for the building, obviously it's a fairly nondescript infill office building that was built in the 1950s, 60s. And it's been kind of underutilized and underrepresented in the downtown Troy area. So our intent is to do a net zero mass timber construction building on the site. The third floor will be built out of mass timber. The building will be completely self-sufficient from an energy use standpoint. It will not be connected to any fossil fuel or municipal utilities. We have solar panels on the roof, which generate the majority of our electrical utilities for the upper 2 floors. And then we will also have the ground floor. Tenant right now, we're looking at it being restaurant space, and that will be a net zero, basically all electric kitchen. We'll be using community-based solar programs to fulfill the rest of the need for the electrical utilities. So you can imagine downstairs restaurants going to require quite a bit of energy use. But that's the intent. We'll be completely off-grid with that project. We're also intending to install some on-street vehicle charging stations that will be powered by our building along the side street. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I lived in Troy for 7 years, went to school, architecture school for 5, and then I lived here for 2 years after. Ended up then getting a job offer in Saratoga and moved there. And been there, shortly after that, 5, 6 years later, I started my own company. And that started with me, myself, and I out of my house. But those of you who know me, I graduated RPI, but I really had to focus on sustainable design from day one. I worked on the first certified green buildings in North DC headquarters for architecture firm at the time, Gregory J. Sullivan, PDF. And, worked with NYSERDA, the state, U.S. Green Building Council to really test drive all the initial green building rating systems back in 1999. So that's always been a hallmark of our firm. We've steadily grown. Troy office has 5 people here right now. Saratoga has 22 people. We're completely out of space at both offices. So this is really, for me, a full circle journey. Having gone to school just up the road, and the fact that this building is going to be located 1 block from the bottom of the road. A journey that I took many, many times, walking back and forth to downtown Troy. And I've always loved Troy, especially as an architect's perspective. I think it's culturally rich, architecturally rich, and when we were looking around when we were running out of space in Saratoga and said, where would we want to go? One, I had a bunch of employees that were from Troy and Albany area, and they were commuting up to Saratoga. So we decided to rent a storefront at 291 River Street. This lady right here helped us find it. We've been there, it's been great, but we're out of space. So we want to grow our company here in the city of Troy and invest in it considerably. Like I said, we're going to create at least 28 jobs over the 3 to 5 year period. Our goal is to create 36 over naturally will include some of the restaurant employees. So we're really excited about the project. It just happens to be great timing with some of the things the governor of the state of New York has put into place right after we announced our project. As you all know, announcements about being all electric buildings by 2040. So, you know, we feel that this can be an example project of how you can take a two-story brick infill building that, let's face it, that's replaced some really historically beautiful buildings at one time. And it's a suburban style building. It's out of place, I think, for where it is. But we're hopefully going to breathe new life into this building and show what you can do with some of these buildings, and how they can be good urban buildings again, but also be environmentally responsible. Really excited about it.
Thank you, both of you. That concludes your presentation. Before we go into initial project resolution, there's an issue with my packet. I think I see that with everyone else's. This is all blank. Unfortunately, your application came through completely blank for everyone.
Janae, did you get a signed version of the check for this application? Did you guys submit the IDA application fee? Do you have a hard, Janae? Sorry to interrupt you. Do we have the hard copy of the application with the signature on it? Because the one in the packet.
Did you get one?
We do have the signature page.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think the PDF kept getting scrubbed or something.
I don't even have it.
So, this is a $9.3 million project that does create 5 jobs in the current number of positions is 5 jobs created in year 1 is 22, and then 22 in year 1, 2 in year 2, and 4 in year 3 for a total of 28. And what else do I need to say about it? Again, it went through the planning commission. They have already neg-decked it and approved the application. The historic district commission made some recommendations, and the applicant modified it. The planning commission actually requested that they put it back to what was there before. So they have a really, really beautiful building. It's, you know,
Yeah, I have a pretty close, I'm familiar with the project, but if anyone on the board needs more information before we go into initial resolution, we can walk through it on
Some
this.
technical questions that we can probably address offline with you guys after the fact, but the top of the line ones, you're not closing up the Saratoga office, you're going to maintain that?
Correct.
Generally, IDAs, when you have a business move from one area to the state to the other, we have new requirements. We have to send a notice to the mayor of Saratoga Springs, for example. But if you're maintaining that spot and not abandoning that space, that's okay. It's a good expansion. The other question I had was, are you going to fit up the restaurant within your own project budget, or would a tenant come in and take care of their own fit up and FF&E?
Right now, we're looking to do the fit up on that.
It's in this budget that you have in the application?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm involved in restaurants myself. Some of you may know I'm part owner of the local pub and tea house in Saratoga, part owner of I-50 Waterfront, Saratoga Lake. So a lot of our design is hospitality. We work for resorts, hotels all over New England. So I know that business well. The reality is I may be involved in it in some capacity.
You might have a piece of the tenant. All right. Okay.
Yeah, so I want to remain married too.
Right.
So
That sounds good.
I don't know how many other restaurants I could get involved in, but
Give her a job in a restaurant.
But yeah, so we'll probably help design, construct, build it, probably build it into the lead.
Yeah. When we ultimately approve your project, there'll be some very specific caps on the amount of sales tax assistance that we provide. So if you have the FF&E and the fit up of the restaurant in there, you're good. And you can just appoint that LLC as your sub-agent and let that entity use the sales tax exemption. So we just want to know about that up front. And then the last one is kind of technical, and you'll maybe remember some questions in the application about, is this retail use, your project, and how much? And I think you had a 25% number that was allocated to the restaurant, because that's kind of obvious. But professional services is actually retail. Anytime, it's not just the collection of sales tax. For a business that's operating, it's when any people personally visit for services. So your architectural space is retail.
Actually, my understanding, because it's governed by the New York State Higher Education Department, there's actually no sales tax.
Doesn't matter if there's sales tax, if someone comes there for a service,
Right.
under the IDA statutes, if it's tax exempt, that's fine. And we've split the baby in some ways with other projects where we've been close to that 33%. And we look at your project budget and we identify the areas in the professional services spaces that are forward-looking for clients. And then you may have some back office stuff. But generally speaking, you kind of fall into that bucket. So if you have clients all over your office, you would include that portion of your space as the retail analysis. So if you get over 33%, it's not a deal killer. We would just have to find a justifiable reason to do the project. The IDAs can do tourism destination projects, which I don't think we fit into that one. Unique service, there's probably other architects in Troy, and there's probably other restaurants in Troy, pretty sure. And then the final justification to do a retail project is if the project's located in a highly distressed area, which generally means there's census tract attributes for poverty and unemployment and things like that, which we may have. We'll have to take a look. And the real easy catch-all bucket is if your project location was ever located historically in Troy's Empire Zone, which I think most of downtown was. So we'll just double-check those maps, and so the 33% becomes irrelevant at some point. We just need to make sure we can check one of those boxes. Sure. So your application said no, no, no. We're going to have to just mark it up a little bit, make sure we do highly distressed. And then technically all we really need to do is process a certificate through the mayor before we close with you. Who signs it and says this is great. So we'll just make sure that we check that box when we move to the next step. So retail 101 stuff.
Yeah, that was the question we had, so appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, it gets fussy. I mean, it's medical office spaces, lawyers' offices that kind of fall into that retail bucket. And I think you're probably hitting, it depends on what your other tenancies are, but you may be 100% retail if you're all professional services upstairs and restaurant down. But again, it's not fatal. We just need to make sure that we check the Empire Zone map, and you should be good.
Thank you.
Yep.
How do you, plan on dealing with parking over there?
Well, we have a great parking deck, kitty corner. Parking deck, kitty corner to my property. Sorry, I think, we already have 10 permits there.
Oh, okay.
Initially, we'll have carousel people, using the offices, and then the restaurant, we feel that people will come from all different, some may park in the garage, some may park where they live and walk here. We have the local public key out in our district on the west side of Saratoga. Our officers actually love that, our Saratoga Springs offices, and there's no parking at all. Restaurants always busy. So everybody within, we have a lot of people who come to the restaurant 3 or 4 times a week. They just walk within 5 blocks. 80% of our customers are within 5 blocks. Then there's a lot of parking lots around us that are heavily used during the day, but at night they're not so. I think the restaurants will be busy. So we think that will come. On there using to restaurants or the parking structure.
I have a question regarding the on-street parking. So you said that the electric meter would be so all of the revenue from the electric meter would be going to you, not the city, for the on-street parking?
We'll be providing the electric utility to it. How the revenue is distributed from that, we have to discuss. Here.
I apologize if you mentioned this, but with the net zero goals, one is is there a certification you're going for with that, and is there any NYSERDA or federal funding that you get for that?
Yeah, so we actually received a grant from NYSERDA to help offset the costs of sustainable infrastructure upgrade, and we will be taking advantage of that. We'll be going from E net zero.
Got it.
Lead rating.
And as part of the grant, there's additional verification testing above and beyond what we charge.
Got it. Well, the packet is complete on the online agenda, but just in case does anybody feel that they need more information or want to review anything printed out on the board before we go to a motion for initial resolution, just because with the absence of the information, Steve has some printed out. Does anybody see any more detail or any more questions? Or do you want me to scroll around for anything?
And this is your first
Bite at the
first bite at the apple.
Yeah.
So we can get a copy of that out to you today. This allows us the ability to go forward and negotiate. If you have any questions, you can certainly, questions or problems, direct them to me in the interim, or and we'll get them to the developer, and they can be asked again at the next meeting.
We have a motion for the initial resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, great. All in favor? Aye. We're in kind of limbo here with the next thing.
I'm gonna take this one, okay?
Yeah.
There's some miscommunication. I'm not sure if Rob Gatch has signed on or not yet, but let me walk you through. You got kicked off?
So weird.
Kept kicking off, and then it was back in, but now I don't see it.
Do you want to go to your 8,000
Embarrassing,
just while she's signing on?
Well, I think I can walk you through this one since we're still here. Or, yeah, let me do that. Let me go through the $8,000 request. So the city was awarded DRI, Downtown Revitalization Initiative funding to extend the Riverwalk from where its current terminus is right now. It's a big question. Is it behind this building, or is it behind the Flanagan building? Because it gets kind of shaky in there, but we are going to redo a lot of that because behind the hotel, the temporary easement is through their parking lot. The permanent easement is over the bank. So we have funding to construct that under the Hoosick Street Bridge, behind the Flanagan building, and go all the way up to, and I can't forget now if it's Rensselaer, south of the Tapestry, but funding to build the Riverwalk up to Tapestry. We have design funding from Department of State that has a 50% match. And I'm working with the owner of this building, and probably will come back to you for additional funding to make that match. It's $105,000, so we'll need about $55,000. But I'd like to get the project moving right now because that grant expires in December. I'd like to have the project ready to go with construction documents so that it can be constructed next year. But the critical piece that's missing right now is the survey, which is an $8,000 cost. It's with Labella, who's already been approved by the city council, but not for most of this phase, most of this project. But I still have to go back to the city council to amend that agreement, and since it's gonna take a couple more weeks, I would like to get authorization to move forward by the IDA to pay for the $8,000 to do the survey, because a lot of that north of the hotel and at the hotel is gonna include kind of cantilevering out over the river, or not over the river, but over the bank, and we need to define those easements. So I have a quote from Labella. It's basically $7,950, but I'd like to authorize at least the payment with that so that I can start that project moving, because it's likely I'll come back to you probably for about another $10,000 to provide the match for whatever First Columbia doesn't pick up.
Do you think you'll come back for that by the next meeting?
If I need to, yes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is enough that I don't have to come back to you for more money.
Any further questions for Steve on that? And if not, do we have a motion to approve the finances for this project?
I'll make the motion.
Motion, do we have a second? Over. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So, let me just move into Proctor's.
Yep.
Or American Theater, not Proctor's. So this is the redevelopment of the American Theater that is a long-awaited, much-needed entertainment venue for downtown Troy. The Proctor's Collaborative is taking this project on, much like they've done in Schenectady with Proctor's, Saratoga with Preservation Hall, and Albany with what's the name of Albany?
Palace.
Capital Rep.
Oh.
Right, and so that finally brings Proctor's to here. As a nonprofit, they would typically be off the tax roll entirely. with no IDA involvement. Right now, the building's assessed at, I believe, $250,000, generates some revenue for the city right now. Because they have historic tax credits, they have ARPA funding as well and DRI funding, but the historic tax credits, they need an entity, a for-profit entity to take advantage of the credits. So they've basically formed a for-profit corporation, but for 7 years, they're looking for a tax abatement to treat them as if they were the nonprofit that basically will end up owning the company in the first place. So it's a $4 million investment. It is before the Planning Commission now, but it hasn't been approved yet. It involves the reuse of the building as a theater as well as a musical venue. So I think it brings a lot to downtown, and I think we should do whatever we can to bring an active use downtown for the evening. So that's what I've always said. There's restaurants and bars in the evening and a few musical venues, but there's not a lot to do otherwise in the evenings. And so I think this brings a much needed improvement to the downtown. So you have the application there before you. Again, I haven't worked with them yet on what exactly they're looking for, but it'll be probably a 5 to 7 year pilot when I get there. I don't want to negotiate it out there, but in the end, the property will be completely off the tax rolls, and it's been vacant forever.
Yeah.
10 years, 15 years?
More than that, yeah.
It's a cinema art.
Cinema art, yeah.
So it was ripped down and.
Yeah, well, I don't understand that.
As a nonprofit, when they finished accessing all their tax credits.
Yeah, there's a $900,000 tax credit generation on this for historic purposes, and as a not-for-profit, it's really not any good to them. So in these structures, what typically happens is they bring in a tax credit equity investor who buys those tax credits for 90 cents on the dollar typically. So that capital is brought to the project up front. In order for that investor to get the tax credits, they need to be a partner in the business for at least 7 years as a hold period. So structurally what happens is they create a taxable entity, an LLC, and Proctor's will be probably a 0.1% member in managing the entity, and the tax credit equity investor is 99.9% passive investor. And then that's how they generate the tax credits as a taxpayer. But what happens is instead of Proctor's being a 501c3 owner of the building, they have a taxable entity sitting there as the owner of the building. So it makes the property taxable even though there's a largely not-for-profit driven project there. For UPH in Saratoga Springs, when they renovated that old church, I think it was either the Saratoga County IDA or the city, I forget which, but they did a very similar structure for the tax credit investors. The IDA provided kind of a standby pilot to treat them like they were exempt. It's a 5 or 7 year pilot. It's a short term, but it protects them from a tax spike during that 7 year hold period. So that's what they're asking for, generally speaking. So
how does the city generate money after the pilot is gone? Is it just economic value at that point?
It's economic value. I mean, Proctor's in Schenectady was a $20 million investment that brings people from all over to downtown Schenectady. There is no property tax revenue that any of the tax jurisdictions get. It's all the sales tax from the restaurants and the other taxes generated by all the people coming to visit to go to that venue.
Sales tax, film and restaurants.
So this basically enables them to fund the project. Otherwise, it would be, they didn't have.
How would they raise the money at that point to do the project?
I'm sorry?
How would they raise the money to do the project if they didn't do this route? Is it like investors or it's just?
It'd be $1 million hole in their budget.
Right.
They didn't have the tax credits. Yeah.
And again, this has been funded by a lot of public money, but I think it brings a great value to the city that we otherwise don't have.
And why are they not here today?
I think it was confusion between myself and Rob Gass. He talked to me, said he could get on, but he said he could get on there to answer any questions. He's their attorney. And because we were offline, I think he might have missed.
I think Phil's traveling. And,
Phil's traveling.
And Rob, I think there might have been a disconnect with jumping into Zoom.
Yeah.
But I think largely he would explain what I just laid out. I've talked to him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if they're going to be getting this money and going through that process, they would have a representative here, similar to the other folks that are in this room.
For sure, yeah. I mean, there's a bit of a disconnect.
It was, and again, it was partially us being out of town most of the end of last week. and then having a Monday holiday as well, I think the communication just didn't get through.
We had similar questions on their original application, just in terms of history. We adopted an initial resolution for this project in March of 2020, for those that may have been here at the time, and then everything kind of stopped. They renewed the application because they're looking to get this all through planning and the IDA this summer. We went through their draft application, which largely looked like the one from 2020, and to make these folks feel better, we're not just picking on them, we adjusted their retail question because it's a retail facility. So we had them submit a revised application. It came in yesterday morning, and there was a disconnect in terms of who's going to jump on the call today. So
Again, if you have additional questions, we will make sure they're here for our next meeting. This gives us basically the authority to move forward and look at what that structure is.
I imagine, given the complexity, or at least the uniqueness, it'd be more like a July thing. But we'll feel them out for timing.
This is the first project that I've seen come across this that has so many part-time job positions, and I'm questioning the number. If that's are these seen as part-time positions? So let's say there's two people splitting a part-time job to equal facility manager and concession manager. It seems like even though it's a one-screen thing, they might need more people than this. And also, my question would be, now this isn't the initial resolution, so this is just a comment. If the current wages are on pace with what they're paying in the capital rep at Proctor's and Albany, I assume they are. I'm just curious if you see flow, but it is what it is. It sounds like they've made a lot of effort to stick with the city for a pilot on this. If they're not with the IDA, do they have to, or is this, if it doesn't go forward to the point that there's $1 million hole in the budget, I imagine that this would be something they're going to look elsewhere for financing, or does it stop here?
Well, so, I mean, this is, I think, I think without this without the pilot, they're probably, it's gonna be taxing on their bottom line, which is already bare bones.
Yeah.
It's always, with the arts, it's always tough finding the revenue, for the operating income, and.
Geez, at $11 for a little bag of popcorn, you think they'd be making plenty of money?
Get selling bags of popcorn.
$11 for a little honey bag like that, you think that, I'm trying to figure out why is a movie theater a nonprofit?
They were dollar bags in Proctor's when they were having.
Yeah, that was back when you were a kid, that's what.
No, when it went in the, in the last.
Will they do that here?
I don't know. I can't answer that for you.
This is not a Regal theater. I mean, this
Yeah.
is a whole different concept of a movie theater.
Right.
I don't think,
More like Spectrum.
yeah.
Is it an actual movie theater, or is it like a Proctor's where they're gonna get acts and
It's
It's going to be live entertainment, too.
live
Yeah,
entertainment?
it'll be one screen, and then that'll be movable.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay.
It won't
Gotcha.
be, it'll be staged. You won't see performances like you see in Proctor's. I mean, there's not a lot of a stage, but there's the ability to set up for music. Musicians.
Okay.
But yeah, from what I remember the planning meeting, it's a first-run movie theater, so it's not gonna be like just art films or impact films. It's like,
Like actual
you'll
movies.
see Spider-Man there.
Yeah, okay.
I imagine.
All right.
Maybe not, but
Something that's, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Are there any further questions from the?
What exactly are we voting on today?
This is the initial,
Just accept their application.
Yes,
Just to accept the application, not on the pilot.
Right.
And they would be pretty fast for them to move to the next meeting, or maybe not. You said they're trying to get this by the summer.
I think we would probably be able to get this on the next meeting.
Okay. So we will have more to review to approve this by the next, because they have been approved by planning.
They're in planning right now as a type 1 action, so they
Right.
couldn't get approved next meeting, but it's still going through that process. It's a reuse of an existing building for mostly, it's not a huge lift to the planning
They
commission.
can have their neg deck before June 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. And we could theoretically move, we just need the CBA and the public hearing notice properly. And at the end of the day, it's a relatively small project, so if it's a 7-year standby pilot, let's say it goes from $250,000 to $1,250,000 in assessment, they're gonna have, go from $8,000 a year times 5 is $40,000 a year, so there's $32,000 a year in potential pilot savings over 7 years, so it's like a $250,000 question in terms of the tax abatement. So it's not a huge proposition that the city's being asked for through the IDA. That'll help us get to that tax credit equity. That's kind of the bottom line of it. The sales tax and mortgage tax that they would need are relatively small numbers too. It scales up when you have larger projects. Our conversation here in a few minutes is just a larger scale. That will answer your question on the LLH project as well. When you have something that's down around $1 million in project size, the pilots are in turn a little bit shorter, just because the scale isn't there to go 20 years.
And again, if there weren't historic tax credits involved in this, it would be just going immediately off the tax roll then.
And we just wouldn't see it.
So up for a motion is the acceptance of the application for the American Theater for the street. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
So I got a question. So this Art Center and Theater is connected, they run Proctor?
They run Proctor's, they run Silver Hall.
That's the parent not-for-profit. Assets.
So I'm seeing,
They travel up the employment, all that.
you
And
know,
they have no ownership in Troy's office.
yeah, I'm just saying, man, it doesn't look like a lot of the money's coming from grants. It doesn't look like they're putting anything into it, that's what I'm,
I would say we're not a lot different here than in any of their other developments, and they've all been successful. They're like looking for any money they can get.
I think they have around $250 to $300 in cash equity, and that's gonna be through fundraising.
that's what I'm saying, that they don't have a lot in.
Just like a hospital would.
Right, no skin in the game, Everybody else is one.
So just to conclude new business, again, we've removed the Catholic Central redevelopment initial resolution, and now we're moving on to old business. We're gonna start with the King's Landing project.
Okay, so this has been a long time in the making, and I want to thank Elbert for working with me on the development of the cost benefit analysis and the pilot. There we go, I'm sorry, gotta get the sheet here. So this is, again, the creation of 52 apartments with, I think it's 94 bedrooms, and we put that up to 94 bedrooms because there was some confusion around the other one project. I would just add that,
Blanket, bless you.
that Kings One has been a very good performing for the city, not a lot of police calls, not a lot of fire and safety calls like we get with many of our housing projects. So once up and operating, it's not a big city headache. So what we have is a 20-year pilot with 4 years.
4 years, 100%.
I should be looking at it, thank you, before I start talking. So with 5 years at 100%, and then from there going down 5% a year through year 20. If you remember, the county IDA for the property across the street, which is now adding 3 floors, the county gave a 10 years at 100%, and went down from there not much. So because of we were concerned, we spent a lot of time analyzing the debt service coverage ratios, and incomes from this, and negotiating with the developer, and basically we came up with a schedule for you now.
We don't have it.
You don't have
We
it?
have it, do we?
It's attached to the public hearing record at the front of your packet.
The front of your packet?
Right, it might be like the 4th page, right on the back of the.
You might need a microscope, but.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So this does, again, because of the neighborhood opposition to the loss of the buildings, at a great expense, they're preserving those buildings, they're demolishing, I believe, what's a garage, and then they're renovating a number of those buildings. The incomes are lower because the units are smaller and older, and the increased cost of doing renovation as opposed to demolishing and constructing, a lot of costs involved with that. And as without the pilot, the debt service coverage ratios didn't come close to paying, allowing them to be able to get the bank funding for this. So, I don't know, Albert, do you want to add anything? Because I had Albert working on this, and a lot of opposition from Albert till we got to this level.
Love that.
Give me your point.
Basically, the reason I liked it was because I took an average of the 20 years pilot, the 2.4 million. I averaged that out over the whole 20 years, and I came out to 128.97. I didn't like it until I saw that, so,
So that's,
Had it-
what's that average you're saying?
average taxes paid on the property.
Okay.
For the 20-year term. My question is, what happens when they get, the interest rate gets reset? Do they come back to you for, no?
No, I
Okay.
mean, this is all,
So this is fixed for the
this,
whole 20-year?
yes.
Presumably, there's a construction loan that's gonna convert to a permanent at some point, and
Yeah, I took that into
that's when
consideration
people
too,
articulate
yeah.
that, but it's probably right after stabilization. Now, there's risk
So, yeah,
in the market.
The 18 months for construction, then, I don't know, a year and a half for it to stabilize it? I mean, I didn't like it until I took an average of the 20 years. That's what convinced me.
And then,
Because I know that the debt service coverage, I was looking at it, and it didn't, with my background, 1.2 is what we used to look at. And he wasn't showing 1.2 until year 3, and I'm like thinking, there's no way you would went into a bank with a 1 point break even, debt service coverage on a project this size. So I just,
Yeah, they usually just they collect construction loan interest at that time, and then when the income stabilizes in year 3-ish, start hitting the ratios, and then there's the measure.
yeah, everything I looked at, year 1 is at 1.2, it's not year 3.
again, there was a lot of opposition from the neighborhood. You can see from today that they, you know, Drea made her comments there, but these buildings have been, even under their ownership, they're continually boarding these up. There's a lot of police calls to these sites as they are right now, so I think it spruces up that area and gets, we've been talking about this project since, I think, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets it moving along those lines.
So can I ask a question on those buildings and the opposition? So they're gonna take that on and refinish and refurb those buildings that the neighbors have been opposed to getting demolished?
They'll be part of the whole
Part
project.
of that project.
So, yeah, they'll be refurbished, except for the building on the front on the alley, and so
Okay.
that one building will come down that you see from
Got
Federal
it.
Street.
We think we can, in the published agenda, I think we have a site plan, if that's helpful.
I'm just wondering how we responded to the comments, and it sounds like that's a pretty, I don't know, giving thing, instead of knocking them down to refurb them and
Yeah.
still make the neighborhood look good.
Yeah, I mean, I think even before that, I think their design had done a lot to kind of try and come down, reduce the height,
Mhm.
make it fit in
Yeah.
with the neighborhood with a totally new project.
Yeah.
But there was still opposition, so they found a way to preserve those buildings that are there.
At this was months ago, but the last time we opened the floor for public opinion on this, it wasn't technically a public hearing, I think. We had a lot of comments on
Mhm.
it. It was
Mhm.
also making sure that, like, the same materials, the size of the units, the
Yeah.
number of units, everything was gonna stay consistent. And the only comment I would add to that is, I guess, like, the retail space, it seems like the hardest thing that would be to fill with a full-time position, which is part of making sure that there's jobs on this. So and this is a general question for other pilots, I hate to address this with someone who's applying for this, but just in general, like, we looked at the Paris reports, back in, I think, January. Like, if there's not the number of jobs created that is proposed, that's just something to consider. Like, I think to me, that's my concern about risk on this, or anything else. But I think it's one job for the retail
Property
space.
management, yeah.
No, I think it's for the actual retail space. I mean, it's gonna, like, there's just a lot of vacant, places underneath these
Exactly.
That'll be
apartment
the
buildings.
tough thing, just like with city stations
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
and west, or east and west, we have the same problem. They have the retail space, and it's hard to keep those still up there, because they're always underperforming in those, but yet what they're responsible for, they're hitting their numbers.
And if there was like a worst, this is a very broad assumption, but if there was a worst case scenario, like the gym that you guys have on the first floor of your other building is always full of people, you could put something in that space for your tenants. If you don't fill it, it's just, that's my biggest concern, is like, there's a nice corner spot, but it's hard to get to because of a one-way street, which I think is remaining one way, if I remember.
The street's remaining one way.
Yeah.
But, we are designing the whole the whole streetscape for Federal Street, so I think this will be nice to have this up, and I think it'll.
Right.
Yeah.
Traffic circles.
Well, they're east and west of this. So they're at Federal Street Bridge. I think the good thing is it allows, so you don't have to cross over traffic. So you just go to the next round. If you're heading over the Green Island Bridge and you want to get there, you can either go around the roundabout
Right.
on River Street North, or not River Street, Kings, or you go up to Sixth Avenue and around and come back in. So the roundabouts actually facilitate entry and exit from this, because you can go either way without making any crossing traffic.
So you would go around. Yeah, they're gonna be at the two lights.
They're gonna be all right turns. So if you're coming out of this project and you wanna head west, if you wanna head east towards RPI, you can either just take a right turn and go around the first roundabout and head back around. If you're coming from the Green Island Bridge and you wanna turn in, you go to the second roundabout.
I can't wait to see this.
It'll work great.
You're not a fan of roundabouts, I take it.
No comment.
You just go around them, or you actually go
Can you get out?
I have no problem
That's a
with it.
separate
I don't have a
commissioner
problem
meeting.
with them personally, I just, like, spatially, I drive that section every day, so I was just, when I picture
Trying to visualize.
envisioning this new.
I would answer you, but I don't wanna digress into roundabout
Yeah.
discussion, right?
Yeah, just to circle back on the process, are there further questions, or is there anything anybody wants to see related to the project in the more expanded packet we have? Is there any more information we need before we take this to a vote to approve this pilot?
And I'll just add in that with this revised structure, so the city, gets what it's getting right now, and it starts to see some significant income jumps, really year 7 and year 8, and there's, from what I've seen with Kings One, there's really not an increased demand on services, public safety.
I do have one question. I went through your salaries on your 2021 tax return. The salaries were paid out to all the partners in the King's Landing. It all added up. I went through it. It all added up. And none of these, the salaries were paid out to all the partners. The K1s, I added up all the K1s, and it came out to the same number that was on salaries, mine, on your expense statement, on your operating statement. So I don't see any
employees?
Salary going into, any employees. And none of it was like 40,000. The highest salary was like 28,718.
Certain salaries go to their distribution.
K1s are saying salaries to all the partners, that's what it was saying. Well, I saw the management fees, I'm not disputing that. We had management fees and salaries. I wrote out that whole operating statement. I went through it.
The management company they pay the salaries, we pay the management company salaries. Whatever's remaining.
Can you speak up? I can't.
Sure. Whatever's remaining is distribution to partners, right?
Well, your operating statement had management fees, which was like 66,000. Then you had wages and salaries, which was like 201.
Yeah.
And that, let me finish, and that, I added up all those salaries and your K1s, and it came out to that same figure. So the salaries were paid to the owners. That's what the tax return said. I'm just telling you what I read.
You get some documentation on that?
Yeah, you can speak to our accountant.
I'm just telling you what I saw in the tax return. All right.
Something on that first.
I guess my whole thing is I didn't see anything going to a lease manager or anything like that.
Let me explain that. No, the salaries should be paid to the staff. So $1,000, that sounds about right for three people. And then the distribution to the partners are totally different.
Yeah, but the distributions won't show on the operating statement. They're showing the K1, but not the operating statement.
And
this is all through the operating
distributions were
statement.
more than 200. The K1.
That's what your tax return said.
Well, I would love to get an opportunity to have our accountant. I mean, guarantee you,
Salaries were paid to the 3 people that worked there. And distributions were made to the owners.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, that brings us sense of confusion.
Yeah.
Something we should get some documentation on and figure out.
This is King's One.
Well, yeah, it's the first one, I'm assuming,
It's not this.
yeah.
Well, we wanna make sure King's One's doing right, so King's Two does right too, you know?
Yeah, reading the room, that, just looking at concern faces, I appreciate you raising that point. I don't want to I don't want to point out something that, it is unrelated, but is there an opportunity to do any conditional improvement upon further review of this, or does it not work? I guess I'm lost for if we're looking at.
Can I see that, please?
I don't have your tax return, I just have,
The numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
I got the numbers I wrote down.
we'll clarify it.
Yeah.
Or you can table it.
Why don't we table it?
That's what, yeah, do we,
It could.
I'm just telling you, man, when I saw in the operating statement,
Way,
that's,
place
Right.
numbers.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we're talking sort of apples to oranges.
Yes.
And we can,
Caveat that we'll get the CPA to respond.
We have the ability under the existing Kings One lease back to analyze their tax returns and their filings and their payroll separately and outside of this approval. If that would give you more comfort, we can just utilize the leaseback provisions to do an analysis. if you'd like.
yeah, because, well, what they're telling us is they're gonna be paying a lease manager or whatever, and then I'm looking at the tax return, it's saying something totally different for the other project, so, I just, you know, if that's what you're gonna do, you know, you wanna see it on the tax return.
I don't want to, yeah, I don't think the direction of the board is to pause this with all the work that's been put into this and the time it's taken, but it does sound like we want to put some more scrutiny on the Kings One project, which could, like, if the result isn't something we like that's related to a separate project. Unfortunately, they do impact each other in a sense. If there's something that comes out on Kings One that we don't like, it could affect you guys, but we have to get to that point, it seems like.
For sure, we can make it. King's One, it sounds like something CPA.
But with that said, like, kind of reading the room a bit, if you want us to go forward with this rather than delay it, like, the vote's the vote, just if we won't do that.
I mean, so certainly we can get together with them and review that. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'd like to see this move forward and off of our plate. And I think we did a pretty good job analyzing where the fees were going on this current project.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, I mean, I walk by there all the time, and those structures have been in bad shape for a while, and I know you're putting money into this project, I just like to
Legitimate question.
see a correlation between your operating statement and what you're telling us you're gonna do.
Chair, I have a question. Let's say the pilot was denied, would you still go forward with the project? And the last developers that we brought into the city that were doing market rate units, one didn't even require a pilot, one got turned down and is building the project anyways. So I'm just trying to think of how strengthful is that pilot to this process, and why is it such a necessity?
It's a necessity. We've looked at the pro forma that barely works with the pilot on the debt coverage ratio. So without a pilot, definitely one.
right.
And I think the ones that we've refused to give pilots for have been the larger projects outside of the downtown, Oakwood Avenue, Lansingburg, where there's larger space, there's on-site parking, it's on-site separated parking, it's not underneath the building, they're a lot less expensive to develop.
Price per unit.
One at a time, please.
Yes, there's not renovation, I mean, it's tight space, there's renovation of existing old buildings here.
Like you're trying to keep the old buildings and reface them.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot more, the cost for the downtown project is a lot higher for than the ones that we refuse to do.
Not a fan.
I just think they're two separate situations. I do think it needs to be looked at. I always appreciate all your hard work.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would like to see this
But I do
move
also think
forward.
that you have to talk to your accountant to understand your return, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we use one of the biggest firms in here.
I have done, well, like, I see our tax returns where I work, and sometimes I see where things are placed, and I scratch my head like, that's not how I thought it was gonna be, but they have their reasons for why they place things.
It does seem like any concern on your project is related to job.
Oh, I know, they're not perfect. I've seen tax financials that are wrong, so, I mean,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's a good point that you've raised, and we'll look into it. I would move this forward.
I would just like to make a comment. I appreciate Albert's honesty because it's our job as a board to make sure that this money is being spent in the right manner for the residents that are paying taxes and that are gonna bear the weight of these types of projects. So, I appreciate the honesty. I can understand your frustration of how much work has gone into it, but, you know, just keep in mind that it's our duty to make sure that it's getting looked into as we bear the weight of these taxes as taxpayers in the city of Troy. So thank you, Albert.
Well said.
And for working on these numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a motion from Sue.
We have a motion from Sue.
I'll second.
Well done.
Okay, do we have, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain from this.
I would ask that opposed.
All opposed?
Aye.
And any abstentions?
What's the abstention, can I ask? Or no?
I just would like to not,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think technically you have to have a
Yeah,
reason
you
why you
think you have to
abstain.
have a
You can't just say, I don't want to vote. You have to have a reason, either an association or a relationship to the project.
I thought that was for recusing.
I don't think so. I don't have time to look it up. Anybody here legal?
I think,
Usually an abstention has a reason behind it.
Has a clause behind it.
Okay, then I'm gonna say nay.
Okay, so you got 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Did I get that right? 6, 7, no, I can't even add.
That's 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 2. Passes 6 to 2.
Two. Yep.
Yep.
Thanks for your patience.
Thank you all. I have to leave for another meeting, unfortunately.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Take care. Yeah.
The next agenda item is the 99 Ferry Street, project authorization resolution.
Okay, so this is 99 Ferry Street, which is the renovation of the long vacant building east of Sunhees that backs up on the alley. Eric is here if there's any questions for him. And you had, I know, a question. So this is a creation of, is it 4 or? 2 commercial and 8 residential spaces. It is a very expensive renovation for a building downtown that you don't always necessarily generate the return from your investment in this project. So, based on the financing, what you have before you is a 7-year pilot. 7-year pilot, 3 years at 100%, and it basically parallels the financing with it to get Eric through the financing portion of this, so that it doesn't make a negative cash flow for him. 3 years at 100%, and again, this building right now generates 8,000, much like it generates 8,000 and will generate up to 25,000. It's not a real big project, but it's a great, much-needed project right on the main thoroughfare, and it's a building that's been long neglected. So the structure is 3 years at 100%, then 90s and 80s, 70s and 50s, and then it jumps right back on the tax roll.
it's right here. Right.
Is it LLH Ferry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's still someone paying taxes, and it will continue to generate $8,000 to 7. Do you need a copy of the pilot down there? You want to pass that down?
Got it.
There you go. That's what I'm.
Okay. So now you can ask me questions, because I'm not looking at it.
You want mine, Steve?
Go ahead. So, you took out 2 of the residential units from the last conversation, Eric.
Eric,
There were 2, last month, or last time we talked about it, it was gonna be 8 to 10, now it's definitely 8 units?
It's 8 units and 2 commercial.
2 commercial. So,
Albert, you have any questions about his payroll?
Can we see your taxes?
Your building's a block from my house, so I...
Uh-oh. You better be ready.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Superintendent's here. Got the binoculars in his window.
I'm for it.
Shoveling your snow.
That property's been a mess for a long time.
Yep.
Commercial.
Yep.
Last time we, there was
Thank you.
currently ongoing abatement at the project, and was there any update on that?
Yeah, so the abatement has been completed, and, everything's clear in the building. And right now, we are actually working on the basement, and we actually contacted
That's, I thought it was able to commercial space.
because we found out that
This is it here.
there has to be a water main that must go. That water was.
He owns a restaurant, and he's
And then we contacted them, I think that was wrong. And I think that was all like.
So it's right next to that,
Would you-
that alley,
so
so Sonny's
One of the points of your presentation was
on the corner, yeah. And then there's 2 residences right
That's why I was
there.
asking
Used to
about,
be,
is there anything added?
So,
car lot, it used to be a car lot.
Yeah, Camille's car lot.
Yeah.
So abatement and removal, we did both. We did the abatement and removal.
So nothing
It's actually,
surprising.
right, I mean, abatement is a little bit more than I expected, but removal is actually less than what I expected. Because there's not much in the building that needs to be removed, that require extensive, like, work. Also, you know, I was telling Steve, is that we are also, working on the tax credit application. Well, at the part 2, the person who does our application, her name is Kim Alvarez, and she has a company called Landmark Consultant. So we are at part 2 of the application, and it should be, she said it should be ready for submission, at the earliest on the 9th of June, at the latest on the 16th of June. So with that, it will substantially help financial part of it. The main goal is get it finished, because once it's finished, you know, we got the, national grant that comes in, other part of the cost, et cetera. So we are working on different ways to make sure that it's solved. But most importantly is to get the project complete.
And we calculated that into the.
Listen, I'm looking at pictures online, the building is,
It is very.
it's unbelievable, man.
I got some pictures.
It's pretty you're taking on a significant project, that's, yo.
Are there any other further questions about the application or?
Nope.
There are public hearings.
Sorry.
So,
If no further questions for the applicant or has, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
No, we don't have it. Back, sorry.
yeah, Josh.
Just wait for that restaurant to finish, huh, Albert?
Albert's all over.
There's a restaurant next, Sun Heath is right next to it.
I'll give it to
Where
Albert.
he stands is where he sits. Right.
Sun Heath is right next door to it.
That's good.
Absolutely.
He has the existing restaurant.
Okay, so we have a motion from Josh, a second from Robert.
The Sun
All
Tea and the-
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
In City Station, he'll,
Great.
Oh, he owns Kumahani?
yeah.
Yeah. Then he's got one on, I think there's one on Wolf Road too.
It's right on the corner
okay,
there
now
in
on to-
City Station.
He's gonna use it
Financial.
for his,
Like Korean soup, oh my God, it's awesome.
It's good.
Isn't it good?
I gotta stop there.
You gotta go, good. Really good.
I gotta come to your place now. Everybody's bragging about your food.
Really good?
Yeah, Kumahani's good.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a cold or like you don't feel good. Oh my God, it's awesome.
I don't feel good every day.
Yeah, there you go. I wouldn't recommend it on a 90-degree day, but.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, congrats.
And then just one question, because we all always have materials,
Close the whole thing, one shot, we don't have a bank.
This will be
No.
kitchen space,
And that's gonna be really good for the neighborhood. That's
other
awesome.
restaurant.
Yeah, well, look at the building, we need to do
And the
something.
rest will be,
That's good.
yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
great to get that building back.
Great to get them all back, but at what cost, you know, I mean.
Well, that's,
Have
the
to have the
city's
right
willing
value
to
for how
undertake
we
it.
bring them back, so we don't hurt them.
Huge. I don't have to,
As of June 30th, we have a little asset.
Anything.
Order in the court.
I apologize.
$153.38 with $685,590.40 cash. We had $200,884.50 liability, plus the general fund balance of $733,268.74.
Excluding the $310,000 check that we have.
We have March numbers here on the, these are March numbers all the way around.
Yeah, I think most of these are,
Are you guys looking at different?
yeah, this is.
yeah,
I got a March.
this is as of March.
Yeah, thank you.
Just put it up on the screen.
Yeah,
Why don't you just put up on the screen?
Yeah, then you could put it up on the screen.
Save you from doing all that printing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Usually go right through. Can't minimize it?
Oh, but you're gonna have the same one there.
I don't have them on here.
Just,
Just make a vote on what he said.
You wanna adjourn the meeting and go into the CRC?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So I don't know, how about, before you go today, what does everybody have for CRC financials?
April.
April, yeah.
Okay.
We're out of CRC, I think.
All right, I'll share it. We'll share it. Just numbers.
Temporarily adjourned.
Just say, hey.
Back of this. So do we have a motion to adjourn the,
so move.
Sue and Sue? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're gonna call to order the Troy Capital Resource Corporation Board of Directors meeting, June 1st, 2023. It is 11:30 a.m. We're gonna start with the approval of the minutes from March 24th. Do we have any, questions, comments, concerns, or if not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
The Sues. I love it when Sues. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed.
Oh, yeah, capital resource right here.
On to the executive director report, Steve.
Nothing new, only other than that, I anticipate an application for the Powers Park, concert series to come into next month's meeting, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you haven't had a chance, this is a great year to go up and see what that investment has done. Our lineup of bands are up there with top concert venues in all the area. I don't know if anybody knows Albert Cummings, we're bringing him in, we're bringing in the B Street Band. These are West Coast, very expensive bands to celebrate, free concerts in Troy. And just to let you know, on July 22nd, we will be honoring the Fain family for their dedication and commitment to communities all over, not just Troy, but all over. So I'd like to make sure that you all are aware of that, so you could possibly come up and enjoy that night with us. We'll be presenting them with some accolades around 5:30, and then we'll start the band at 6 o'clock. And bring your chair, bring your cooler, we won't look inside.
Nice.
July 22nd, right?
July 22nd.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, and that's it for Executive Director's report.
Great, on to the financials for the CIC.
First report is a statement of financial position. As of April 30th, we have total assets of $416,071.77, with $201,071.77 in cash. We had no liabilities, which left us with a fund balance of $416,071.77. There is no change in the statement of financial position. Next report is the statement of activity. For the month of April, we had a deficit of $1,560.42. There were no significant sources of revenue, and the largest expense were the accounting fees, which is monthly fees for BSD and the final billing for the audit.
We have a, thank you. Do we have a motion to?
Motion.
Second? Josh? Jim? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Great. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Jim and Josh. Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Now we're gonna pause before we reopen the IDA for financials.
The table got really quiet when you paused.
Because we're still.
The table got really quiet when you paused the action here. Everybody's anticipating going on that 90-degree weather today. I see some smiles too, I mean. Let's face it, it sure makes your bones feel good out there.
January.
Oh, my God. We really didn't have a bad winter, but you know what? It seemed like it just kept that average keel that was just enough to, you know, kind of throw you off guard there. Just enough wind, just enough cold to torture you, but relatively, we had a great winter. There was no sub-zero days.
Snow blower once, you know, so we're.
I know it.
I bought a brand new one. And I didn't use it. I'm so.
Me too.
So mad.
My one wouldn't work end of the year. I bought a brand new one, and I didn't even take it out.
Yeah.
One time in snow, my son came down and plowed me out.
Did anybody make notes on the adjournments and everything? Because she was out printing that up. Who adjourned? Nobody did,
Nope.
right?
No.
Yeah, we did.
I think this,
It's Jim and
Josh. Yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
The adjourn
She might have to
was
rewatch
Was
it,
Jim,
sorry.
second was Josh.
Josh, and we got into CRC. Did we accept the financials?
Yep.
Who made that?
Josh. Second by Jim.
Second by Jim.
And then
In
we
minute for Sue and Sue.
Sue, and then adjourn.
You sent him a note. I will send him a paper again.
Jim and Josh.
Jim and Josh.
I'll notify her.
Okay, and then we,
And the adjournment of the IDA was Sue and Sue.
Right.
oh, the adjournment of IDA.
Yeah, adjournment of CRC was Jim and Josh, yeah.
Include all of their outstanding credits.
Okay.
And I was all around.
And so we got these ones?
Yeah, I think everybody has their copy now.
Hit me.
You are?
Okay, I'm gonna call to reorder the Troy IDA June 1st meeting. We're going to cover the financials.
Okay, Matt, you're up.
All you got the right people.
You want me to open the statement?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
First report, statement financial position. As of April 30th, we have total assets of $934,153.38, $685,596.40 in cash, $100,884.66 in liabilities, which left us a fund balance of $752,268.72. There are no significant changes to the statement financial position. Next report is the statement of activity. April, we had a surplus of $2,064.17. The most significant source of revenue was applications we received from LH Berry, and the largest expense were the accounting fees, which again were a combination of and final building is on.
Any questions, or do we have a motion to approve the finances?
To go to
Oh, sorry.
his aging.
The aging report, I would take
what's up with the
I'll
Hendrick
take the
Hudson?
hit on that. So, by the way, this is Kings Commons is right here.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So the other three, we continually have problems with 33 Second Street. The other two are Bonaccio.
33, have paid their pilots and now
Okay.
those payments really went up there.
Oh, 444.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just talk to Matt, when we go from 30 to 60, that'll fire up a letter.
Okay.
We tend to, under the leaseback agreement, when we send out a notice of you owe us money, typically we have to copy their bank, and that gets people to react really quickly. Instead of ignoring Matt's email or telephone call, it tends to
Weird how that works.
formalize the problem. So we'll put that on the to-do list.
I'll get on a phone with, oh wait, do you have 33 Second or that one? That one's still,
You have that one.
you have 33 Second, so the only one out there is 444.
So all the funds have been paid on these accounts?
Except 440.
Except for 440. That's a big number.
That's a huge
Yeah, it
number.
is.
I know they've been
Um,
some issues.
What
They're,
do you guys do with them? I mean, besides sending them a notice, or what?
Call the bank.
And if they don't pay within 30 days of the notice letter, we can pull the pilot. That'll wake them up.
so we'll get the letter, and we'll call them as well.
Is there like, is that an immediate, once you send that after that 30 days, or is that a process?
Under the pilot, if we say, here's your 30-day notice, and if they don't respond within 30 days, we can unwind the whole thing. And that one's got affordable units in it and a regulatory agreement, so that'll
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
wake people up, so.
All
I
right.
don't know if it's just their management company being disconnected or connected.
Holding on to the cash.
Just squeezing it out of the
Yeah,
bank?
as long as I can, no doubt.
Isn't that
Yep.
Rick Miller?
No doubt.
Rick Manzardo.
Manzardo.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then they gotta pay late fees.
All right, so,
Do we, any further questions, or we have a motion? Sue? Second? Sue. Keep it-
Just really keep it easy.
All in favor?
Sue, Jim, John.
Just formalize the motion to adjourn, again,
I'll make a motion.
Josh, second.
Come on, Jim. Oh, Albert.
Josh, Taylor,
All in favor?
That was a long one.
and again, my apologies for the disorganization.
It's all
So,
good.
are you gonna give us any indication on where you're flying off to? Is your job in Aruba?
I have a job offer from Metroplex. I'm running their land bank because their land bank runner is going to become their executive director and he doesn't wanna, and I created that land bank. So since I didn't know where I was going in December, now I know where I'm going in December. Now I know where I'm going now. And it's, you know, I'm kinda close to retirement anyways, so it's a good last couple of years there.
Yep.
And, it helps me here, cause the LDC pays part of my salary. Are we off the record?
No, I,
Go up. There's no-
Well, now everybody,
No.
Now,
Yeah.
sorry,
The
Steve.
LDC,
The rumor mill is
pays
draining
part of my
down.
salary, it doesn't count.